Meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. I'll apologize to everyone for the delay. We've had some computer glitch. I think it's worked out, but bear with us. All right, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. Again, we'll do everything we can to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. The meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, what can be seen and heard in your background. The chair acknowledges the attendance of staff members, well, Kevin and Kristen, and assuming everybody else is participating remotely, welcome. We have a full complement of commissioners tonight. Thank you guys for your dedication. And I'd like to remind you that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Let's try not to speak over each other. And all votes still have to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. As per Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 regarding COVID-19, now allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. And I see that Jen is in. So Jen and or Kevin. Actually, I'm sorry, it's for me. We're going to start with voting minutes. First set is for November 3rd, 2021. Anyone? Pat, you're muted.
I move that we accept the minutes as written and as amended tonight.
Right. Second, Gladfelter.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. Does anybody have anything? All right. Calling the vote. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury. Maury, you're muted. Still muted. Give me a thumbs up. Oh, there you are.
There we are.
Pat.
Aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes as submitted. Next up, minutes for November 10th, 2021.
I move we accept the minutes as written, subject to any changes tonight.
Bird, second.
Gladfelter, second.
That's who you got beat. All right. Does anybody have anything they want to amend on it? Of course not, because they were written perfectly. All right. I'm going to call for the vote, and I'm going to trip you up. Steve.
Pat and I.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Maury.
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes as submitted. Next up are minutes for November 16, 2021.
I move we accept the minutes as written, subject to any changes made tonight.
Bird, aye. Oh, second,
You mean,
second, yeah. Sorry about that.
Anybody have anything they want to amend? All right. Kevin. Yeah.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes as submitted. And with that change of voting, I just totally screwed up my own system, so. Whatever. All right. First up, request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Alyssa and George Syhos, 94 Emmons Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a dock on Sitter's Pond. Mr. Newton, I believe.
I can take that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I tried.
Sorry about that, guys. Justin was getting an error on his end trying to let me in, so I had to redo it under my own email address and not my work email. They are requesting a continuance until December 8th.
Moved.
Harris, second.
Gladfelter.
And hi, everybody. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving.
You as well.
Lovely to
All right.
see you, Jen.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Thank you. Who made the
Gladfelter.
second? Pat,
Harris.
thank you.
Pat.
I was looking away. I apologize. All right. So we have for 94, we have a continuance to 12/8. We have a motion and a second. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until 12/8. Next up, threw that away a little too fast. All right, again, under a request for a continuance, under a notice of intent is the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, 86 Water Street, Woods Hole, Mass, for permission to replace the existing Iceland Marine facility at 86 Water Street in Woods Hole. The proposed work will involve A, the in-kind replacement of the existing pile-supported dock, B, reconstruction and reconfiguration of the deteriorated bulkhead and small boat slips, C, installation of an autonomous vessel port, D, dredging along the facility's west berth, and E, site redevelopment, including demolition of the Iceland building and construction of a new waterfront building.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicants are requesting a continuance until December 8th.
There a reason, how many continuances have they had?
It's been a few, Courtney. There are some very complicated issues that we're trying to work out with the WHOI team. So I would ask the board to have patience with this one. There are some, like I said, some incredibly complicated issues.
No problem. Thank you.
No worries.
I'll move to
Uh,
continue this to the 8th.
Gladfelter, second.
All right,
Oh,
we
wait a
have a
second.
motion.
Wait a second. I shouldn't be involved in that.
Okay.
You're
Pat,
right, you
second.
shouldn't. Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask Jen a question, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I completely understand it's an incredibly complex project and some very interesting issues are out there. Reading the correspondence going back and forth. I have a pile of December 8th things already, so I'm just wondering if maybe there's a better date to continue them to.
They requested that date. I know for one of the continuances that we have for the 8th is not going to be on. So I already know that one of the, I believe it's 72 Pheasant Lane will not be heard next week. We're still working with the applicant on that one.
Okay.
Okay. So I believe you have 3 new notices. I think there were 3 continuances. And now minus that one, there's now 4 continuances.
Okay. Okay. I was just a little concerned. Thanks, Jen.
No worries.
Yeah, so having said that, let's not add anything else after this.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till 12/8. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous, and for the record, Betsy is recused. So otherwise, it is unanimous. Continue to 12/8. Thank you. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Carol Ashenden, 107 Pinecrest Beach Drive, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, that is raise up, the existing residence onto piers. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Patton, second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. There's no comments. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Jonathan and Pia O'Reilly, 14 Montgomery Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling, garage, and to install a new Title V septic system with all associated clearing, grading, and excavation. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move. And a question, this is a floodplain issue?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Gladfelter, second.
You. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Eugene J. Clerkin, 67 Cliffwood Lane, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove dead trees, to prune trees, and to conduct disease preventative injections to maintain health of existing trees. Mr. Newton,
Mr. Chairman, the applicant's requesting a continuance until December 8th.
all right.
Do we have room?
Yes,
Yes.
Courtney, it's RDA will be pretty easy for me to handle.
Gladfelter, so moved.
Bird,
Harris,
second.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this RDA until 12/8. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 12/8. Next up, Nandu and Jean Market Car, 159 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain second-story additions to an existing single-family dwelling, to construct dormers, a roof deck, exterior access stairs, a balcony, and for all associated utilities, landscaping, and appurtenances. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury, Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, William and Linda Dubilier, 169 Metoxet Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove coil roll remnants by hand. Mr. Newton,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney. You're muted. I can see you. It's okay. Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Aye.
I'm learning to read lips. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. All right, now for the fun stuff. Next up, requests for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And as a reminder to the public, commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Greg Jones, 230 Aquapusket Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to enhance a vegetated buffer, to remove impervious surfaces, to reconfigure the driveway, to install a pool and new Title V septic system, and for all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mike Borselli up so he can present his project.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, representing the applicant. With your permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Property in question is located at number 230 Capesket Road. It has frontage on Green Pond. The wetland resources of note include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a salt marsh band, and there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, and there's a non-eroding coastal bank. This property received an order of conditions several years ago to allow for the demolition and reconstruction of the existing house. We've filed now for permission to do some remediation work as a result of some non-compliance matters, as well as the majority of the construction activities, including the construction of a proposed garage and a pool and a new septic system. The garage, pool, and septic system are on the opposite side of the existing house from the wetland resources. If you look closely, there's a dashed line that represents the outer buffer zone B from the top of coastal bank. So the big ticket items, if you will, are outside jurisdiction with the exception of a small strip of patio. We had originally applied for this project with an RDA. And when we filed the RDA, it was brought to our attention that there was some non-compliance. There was an outstanding certificate of compliance, and then it was discovered through review of aerial photos that there was some patio that was installed without permission. So we withdrew the RDA application and filed a notice. We met with your staff on site on a couple of occasions, and we were given instructions on things that needed to be done in order for the project to move forward. So we filed the notice of intent for all of the proposed activities. The non-compliant matter of note in this case, I show as a shaded gray area. It represents a patio, and it borders the house. There are two decks, one flanking each side of the house, and there's a patio in between with a fire pit. The order of conditions approved the house and decks and patio. The order of conditions did not approve the expanded patio shaded in gray. In addition, the order of conditions, as always, had language about maintaining the required mitigation planting in perpetuity. They had maintained it, but the maintenance waned over the years, I guess is a good way to put it. And it was clear that the buffer that was originally required, shown in green here from the original plan, had not been maintained. So I show on the plan the shaded gray area, and I say see note A. And if you look at the plan, note A just describes what's to be done. The contractor shall remove the existing patio and cobble edging, replace with lawn. I also say see note B related to the enhancement of the buffer. And note B says, the area shaded in green shall be planted and supplemented with new native shrub mix. Refer to the shrub mix specified by TNB Landscaping. That's in your file in the application. The area shall be planted to reestablish the previously approved planting area referenced in the order of conditions, and I make reference to the date and the DEP file number. And then I further say the applicant shall comply with special conditions 10, which relates to maintenance, and 11, which relates to monitoring. The plant list by the designer is submitted, and it's here, and it goes through the plants that were proposed to supplement that buffer shown in green. This came as a result of staff review and comments. I believe Kevin Newton met with Brian Litchfield on site to look at the buffer. So we think if we address these concerns, the project that's on the other side of the house could go forward. As I said, virtually all except for a strip of patio is outside of jurisdiction. And I think that sums it up. There were some comments in the staff report and some recommendations, all of which were fine with us. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike, the TNB Landscaping, did you remember when we spoke and I asked you for those, the square footage? Did you send me that? I did not.
Yes, I did. I'm going to share my screen one more time, if that's okay.
Sure.
There's a plan that was prepared by Blue Flex Design that was accompanying the original application and is referenced in the order of conditions. In the notes on the Blue Flex design plan, it itemizes the area of the two areas. The bigger one is 600 square feet, which I've highlighted here, and the smaller one on the south side is 278 square feet. So whatever's appropriate for numbers of plantings, we're certainly amenable to that, if the number of plants is greater than what Mr. Litchfield specified in his specifications.
Okay. I'm just looking on my webmail. I don't. Not saying you didn't send it to. Oh, yep. Sent it Tuesday at 11:42.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll just to the commission, we'll just figure out the appropriate number of plants to put in those green areas. A condition I think that should be placed on this project is prior to the staff signing off on the building permit for the pool and the garage and the cabana is that patio should be removed prior to any approval of a building permit for the pool, patio, and cabana. I mean, pool, garage, and cabana and patio. And in addition, there was kind of a little outhaul pipe that was in the marsh. When the staff went out and reviewed the site, it was removed, but it was just lying in the marsh. I think that was actually from the original permit that shouldn't, that little kind of tie off or a dinghy or whatever should not be in the marsh. So that should be also a condition that it should be removed. And I think that's all I have. Oh, Mike, we're gonna add one more tree, correct?
Yes, that's certainly acceptable.
Yeah, and we'll add one additional tree to the south side of the property. We discussed that as well when we met with Mike this week. And I think those are my only comments.
Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing to add at this time.
Okay. Commissioner comments. Maury, we'll start with you.
No, I think staff covered everything that was necessary. No comment.
Excellent. Pat?
No comments, thank you.
Peter?
No comments, thank you.
Steve?
No comments.
Betsy?
Comments.
Courtney?
I don't have any comments either.
Oh. Kevin, come on, break the spell. Go for it.
No, no comments, thank you.
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Mr. Chairman, before you do close, I had a comment.
Sorry, I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well, I just wanted to clarify one thing. The number of plants that may be specified, I'm hoping you're not basing it on the total area because there are some existing plants in there that did survive.
No, I understand that. In that other area, Mike, the south side, there are no plants, but the ones along the bank, we do realize that there are some of the original arrowwood that did survive in there.
Right. Okay, and the only other thing was, I'm hoping that you won't put a condition that the planting must be done before you can proceed with the building permit because of the time of year constraints. Sometimes you put a condition that the planting must be done first.
Well, Mike, in this case, I mean, that's going to be up to the commission. One, the plantings weren't maintained, and two, there's a violation in this property. So that's something that the commission can discuss. My faith isn't there with this one, so we're going to condition it quite heavily, including monitoring reports, because the original buffer was either not maintained or wasn't actually planted like it should have been, because the south area, it's just non-existent. So that's something the commission can discuss during the deliberation of whether or not they want the plants in prior to us signing the building permit for the garage and the pool.
Totally get it.
Okay.
The planting season, usually is April 15th, starting. We could certainly do it right then, but the building permit, it might be possible to start construction prior to that. I'm just hoping that you can consider that in your deliberations.
Duly noted. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. If there's nothing further, Steve?
Benton, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Pat?
RSI.
Maury? Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you.
Next up, Adamo and Carol Rufo, 139 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct a pier, ramp, and float with a new elevated fixed pier. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mike's here to present his project. You
Thank
don't
you.
have to promote him up. He's still here.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. And again, if I could share my screen, please.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to start off just by showing you an aerial photo of the general neighborhood where the work is proposed. That obviously the applicant's home is at 139 and it's highlighted with the yellow. This is from the town GIS map. And you'll note that in and around this lot on both sides, there are several docks that were constructed through the years, but the upper reaches of the river are just beyond the top of this page. These two docks are the last two, I believe, docks. This whole water body is shallow. And also of note, if you look closely on the east side of the river, on the western side of the houses on the east side is a strip of land. You can see the delineation of the property line, and you can see an actual assessor's number with a parcel number here. This salt marsh is owned by the town of Falmouth. So all of these docks through the years on this side were constructed across the salt marsh under the control of the Board of Selectmen. So what's typically done in these cases, and Jen caught this and directed us to do what I'm about to say, is you need to get permission from the Board of Selectmen to apply to you folks for permission to do activities, because the land is under the control of the selectmen. If you were to approve the project and issue an order of conditions, we still have to go back to the selectmen because they issue a special permit for any work within a wetland as well as the order of conditions that you issue. So we did go to the Board of Selectmen and they voted to allow us to apply. So the property in question is the last remaining one that didn't do repairs to an old dock. This dock predates 1978. It has a interim permit from DEP that allows it to be there. I have a 1975 aerial that, if you look, you can see it's fuzzy, and I think it's right on the margin of two aerial photos that was spliced. But you can see the house, you can see the general shoreline, you can see the walkway in this aerial. The float that was allowed under the interim permit is also shown. So we got lucky that we found an aerial prior to 78, or we would have had to demonstrate to you in other ways that it was predating 78. In this aerial photo, the ramp and float are removed because it was off season. All these other docks are fixed docks. So the project itself, this is the site plan. And you can see in the background, in a lighter pen weight, the location of the existing walkway, and I've dashed in where the ramp and float would be, and I got that from the interim permit. And the interim permit is also in your application, and that's this plan. These are interim permits are done by homeowners. So they sketched out where the dock is. They put some dimensions on it. They showed the dock across the way. They showed the dock next door. And they just showed a general sketch of the land. It's not a survey. It's not prepared by an engineer, but it was an inexpensive way to get an interim permit. We superimposed this. We scanned this into a computer and overlaid it on our surveyed plan in this location. So a couple of things we're proposing to do, since the next step in the process would be to put this interim permit into a Chapter 91 license for the new owner. And the Conservation Commission's role in that process is to comment on it. Well, we anticipated, and it makes sense that you would want improvements because of the condition of the current walkway that's on the property. I'm assuming you've been to the site, and if you have, the walkway is basically inches off the top of the salt marsh. It's constructed with planking with tighter joint spacing between it. At the end, it has a ramp and a float. The water depth, if you look at the plan, is shown in the parentheses reference to mean low water. So there's less than a foot of water if you look at the numbers in parentheses around this dock. The whole water body has less than 2 feet of water depth all around. All the docks in here are in shallow water. So we propose to improve the conditions. So how are we improving them? First of all, where the most obvious improvement would be to elevate the new walkway off the salt marsh. So this plan does that. It changes it to an elevated walkway, and it's elevated to meet the requirements and recommendations of Division of Marine Fisheries, which is 1.5 times the width of the dock. So it's 6 feet to the decking from the salt marsh. By providing the 6 feet above, you're also getting the benefit of providing public access underneath the dock, which is a Chapter 91 requirement. Right now, public access is impeded. In addition to that, the new walkway will be fitted with through flow decking, which is the 50% sunlight penetration decking. So this is a vast improvement over the current conditions. In the background, you can see the walkway. We show it graphically. It's actually, if you've been to the site, it's even worse than that. It seems like it's almost touching the salt marsh in most places. And then we show where the ramp and float would be. If you went to the site, the ramp and float are stored on the property right next to the house. We also propose to do some things that would further improve environmental conditions and also navigational conditions. You'll see that we put an angle point in the proposed dock, and we made the terminal end a fixed pier instead of a floating dock. The floating dock would most definitely be probably touching at low tide. The buoyancy underneath, and it would be shading out the bottom completely. We reoriented the end where the boat would tie so that it makes for better clearance and navigation between the two docks. If we had kept it in this orientation, it would be in a place where part of the boat would be closer to this dock, which would also have its boat on it. Oriented parallel makes it so that it slightly improves the clearance between the two. Putting it in this place also gives you a little bit more water depth, not much, but a little bit more water depth where the boat would tie. 1.6 feet, 1.7 feet, just off the end, and where it is now, it's 1.1 feet where it would tie. We were also required to get comments from the Harbormaster, and the Harbormaster did not have any negative comments on this. So I clearly understand that this is a different configuration, it's a different orientation, it's in a different place, but the improvements environmentally are significant. And we think it's a vast improvement over what's currently existing. And we prefer not to simply rebuild what's in place as is allowed. We'd rather improve the conditions. There was one staff comment that was a bit troubling to us, and that was a recommendation that a shellfish survey be performed. We're hopeful you can waive that requirement because my observation here is the bottom here is the substrate is poor at best, and it's anoxic, and there's no healthy or viable shellfish resource here. And it's very expensive to do a shellfish survey. And what we would learn, if anything, we wouldn't really learn much from the shellfish survey. Even if we were to discover the shellfish, I think what we're proposing would be an improvement for the shellfish resource than what's currently in place. So I'm hoping you can consider that in your review. I think that sums up my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mike. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The staff is recommending you keep with your regulations or required shellfish survey. This is in a slightly different configuration. It's also a lot, it's increased in length. If you look at the Chapter 91 plan, the overall length is 55 feet to the float, and this I just averaged out is closer to 72 feet. So it's quite a bit longer than what was approved under the Chapter 91. The pier section was only 40 feet, and this is 50 something feet. So I mean, it is longer than what the interim approval was. Mike, we did get some comments from an abutter. A lot of them pertain to just some inconsistencies with the Chapter 91, but there was one comment that was sent. It says, when construction begins and when will construction begin, and will it restrict the use of the waterway if a barge is used? And if so, how will the waterway be restricted? So when would you anticipate that this go in? Not during the season? Because you're going to have to go for another Chapter 91 license, correct?
Yeah, if we receive approval locally, we have to go for Chapter 91, and it's a minimum of 1 year from when we apply for Chapter 91. So a time of year to minimize interruption, a time of year condition would be appropriate. We also do we have to be concerned about winter flounder in this location? If it were approved, we would do it at a time when it's not boating season.
Okay. No, I think that was just one of their concerns, and the other one was just to point out to the board then that the float across is a fixed pier. It's not a float; it's a fixed pier.
Oh.
And the rest of it, Mike, you do need to get me that revised form that shows that the property owner is actually the town of Falmouth and not your applicant, or the property owner of 139.
Got it.
Okay. We need that updated form. And pretty much the staff report covered the rest of the board's comments and concerns.
Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Betsy.
So, Mike, was this where the angle off and then where the end of the dock was that staked? Did you think it was staked? Because it wasn't staked when I went out there.
We put a stake on the salt marsh with a distance out to the end. We didn't have boat access to put stakes out in the channel.
Yeah, it was a little hard to envision. I mean, I wasn't even sure where the angle was, angle off to the left was going to be. And I certainly wasn't clear as to where the as to where the end of the pier was, so it was a little hard to envision exactly where it was going to be.
Mhm.
And I'm also not clear whether, if we're looking at this as a new dock, then it doesn't meet the 3-foot depth.
Absolutely doesn't, right?
So
So-
I'm just wondering how we're looking at this. I mean, I agree with Jen that it's a bigger dock. I agree with you that this would be better than what's there. But you know, if that's a legal dock, which I'm still not entirely clear about, then you can kind of replace in kind, or what some people have done is, lifted it up off the salt marsh. So anyway, I'm just a little confused as to kind of how we're approaching this one.
Well,
Well-
Betsy, I mean, it's really gonna be up to the commission on how you approach this. If you would prefer to have some additional staking out there so you can really envision what's going on in there, I'm sure Mr. Borselli can accommodate that and kind of stake out where that angle is and where the end of the float is, so you can see in the field the distance and the slight alteration from that existing dock to that angled part. If they were to rebuild in the exact same footprint, the structure's still going to have to be elevated 1.5 to 1 to
Exactly.
meet EMF's recommendations. They're not going to allow, and I certainly, the staff wouldn't recommend allowing something to be rebuilt right on the salt marsh like that.
No, I recognize that.
And Mike, obviously the area over the marsh is going to be the light penetrating decking, of course, correct?
Yes, and the idea was to eliminate the ramp and float and make it a fixed pier as well, which is better than what's currently.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need it staked, but I think it would have been nice to have had it staked.
I hope you're hearing that loud and clear, Mike, for future docs.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So, I mean, Betsy, as far as how the board evaluates whether or not this is a different structure, a longer, bigger structure, I mean, that's really going to be, what you guys decide to do.
I'm just throwing that out, that I'm grappling with that.
Okay.
All right, Betsy, you good?
What, if I could comment while you're grappling, if it came to be that you all were going to come to the conclusion that this is a new dock, it can't meet any of the standards, therefore we can't approve it, we're going to be left with rebuilding in the same footprint, elevating, of course. And I would also recommend a fixed pier, but this was designed to even improve more by getting in slightly deeper water and reorientate to the other opposing dock to improve navigation. But if it comes to be that, I mean, we're not going to allow a denial, I'd continue the hearing. If the consensus is you can't allow this to be because it's a new dock, and if you were to mandate a shellfish survey, I mean, we would continue and come back and just build in the same footprint. I don't know. I don't think that's environmentally improving things, but.
That wouldn't be the footprint on your plan. That would be the footprint of the Chapter 91 interim license, which is not really reflected on your plan right now.
Yeah, it is. This is the interim permit location right here. This was.
You're not sharing, Mike,
Uh,
but you can.
This was compiled right from the interim permit. There were some dimensional measurements on a profile on that plan, but this was scanned in and measured, with land surveyors.
I understand, but we have to go with the dimensional things that were listed in the permit.
No, I think you have to go by what the plan is, which is this. This is on my plan. This is on my plan.
55 feet total, right? That ramp.
55 feet total is what this says, but if you look at this, this is 55 feet to here.
No, it's not. Your scale is 1 to 10, right?
No, that's a reduced copy. I had to scale it. This is not, I don't even know what this scale is. It looks like it says.
No. Your plan is 1 to 10.
Oh, yeah, mine's 1 inch equals 10, yes.
Yours is 1 inch equals 10. So if we look at the what you have, the lighter little line going down to where you have the dotted line starting with the float is like 58. I'm
Well,
measuring it right now.
Okay, 58.
Okay, so if we're gonna add that, so I mean, we're gonna lock it down to what the chapter 91 says.
All I'm saying to you is that if you scan in that, if you scale that interim permit into place, it's plus or minus a foot. So I think my plan says scale is 57 and the interim plan says 55. So if it has to be 55, so be it. And we did our best to compile it from the interim permit. I mean, but the bigger picture, of course, is if we're going back to that, then this improved orientation and size, if that's not approvable, then we'll have to build it in the same footprints, so be it. But I would just ask you to consider that a little bit more because it is environmentally beneficial.
And Mike, there's no local permits on this either, is there?
No, because it was built prior to even before the Wetlands Protection Act. It was built.
Well, we don't know that. We know that it was built in 75.
Yeah, the coastal wetlands rules were promulgated in 78.
The local rules were promulgated in 78.
Wetlands Protection Act was 72.
Right, for freshwater wetlands, but the coastal wetlands were 78. But it was pre-78, we do know that.
All right, Courtney?
I'm kind of wrestling with the same thing. I agree, Mike, what you're proposing is in some respects an improvement over what is there. But the question is, because its footprint is significantly different, is this a different dock? And therefore, is it a new dock? And if it's a new dock, then it has to comply with our regulations, whether it's 3 feet of water or shellfish surveys and that kind of stuff. And I realize you're trying to avoid that. But, on the other hand, there's enough deviation from the original drawing and the original what's there to make it appear to be new. So I'm struggling with that, and that's my only comment.
I
All
understand.
right. I accept that it's a rebuild, just so you know. Kevin,
No further questions. Thank you.
Maury,
I just had a couple questions. I think there are going to be some improvements here, but when I looked at the old float and the old walkway, the new one appears to be quite a bit wider. I think the old one.
We were proposing it to be 4 feet. I think the existing one's like 2.5 or 3 feet wide.
Yeah, I mean, so really the whole thing's getting it is getting larger than its original size. The 4x4 posts are now going to be 6x6. I mean, that's, you know, a lot of salt marsh that's disturbed. And the float, I don't know what the interim license float was, but this float even looks bigger.
You mean the proposed?
Yeah, your proposed looks larger than the interim.
Yeah, well, the proposed is a fixed pier, and we were trying to make the argument that it's bigger, but it's to the size that you allow. But since we're changing it from a float to a fixed, that on balance, that's an improvement. I mean,
It just seems like I mean, there's improvements, but there's also enlargements. So,
Right.
I mean, and I'm with Courtney, you know, and I understand there are improvements. But the water depth, you know, that's a little bit of a stretch. It's only like 4 inches difference. You know, and I don't know. I have some reservations about it, but it is an improvement getting it off the salt marsh. I would like to see it maybe not 4 feet wide, and the float, the interim size float. I don't know why the fixed one has to be bigger.
The fixed one is 96, the interim float, I believe this says it's 4.5 by 12 was 54.
Yeah, so everything's doubled almost, you know, the width of the walkway is doubled, the size of the float and the fixed pier is doubled, the size of the posts have not doubled, but gone up incrementally. So anyway, I'd like to see the improvements, but I would like to see it not increasing in size all the way around. Thank you.
Usually, you know, when this board has allowed a rebuild, it's literally in its exact same footprint. So this one is larger. That's why the staff, you know, says that you know, your regulations should apply.
Pat,
I have no questions, thank you.
Peter,
Well, my comment is that I'm always looking for improvement for the environment. And I would have to come down on the side of allowing a rebuild because it would be better for the environment. But opposing that would be setting any undue precedents that would limit our actions for other docks in the future.
Steve,
Yeah, I was looking at it as a rebuild. The water depth though is just, I was there at low tide today. There is no water. And this dock, I'm not exactly sure how far above the water line it would actually be. A fixed dock would be better, but it was just mud where I projected the dock to be.
all right. And is there anything in the public chat function?
Hang on, Mr. Chairman. I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't see anyone that has their hand raised at this time.
Thank you.
Mr.
Good
Chair.
folks, what are you thinking? Mr. Byrd?
Just one, first of all, I want to second what Peter says. One of my concerns here is that if we treat it as a reconstruction and rather than a new dock, we have to be concerned about precedent we're setting. And the other part of that is that I think is that Steve raised an issue about water depth and so forth. And that speaks to the fact that this channel is silting in over time. But, you know, that doesn't mean we allow them to build it bigger so we can let them get out and further in the channel to get more depth. It's kind of like a self-defeating thing. This is where it is. That's what it is. That's the cards they were dealt. They can't run ocean liners in. They'll have to run little tiny boats. And if there's not enough water, and it's silting in, that's not a problem for us to make it worse, to give them more space. So I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Harris, second.
Can I make a comment? Where are you? Where's Jamie? Oh, there you are. So Mike, I don't know what you're thinking at this point, but,
I'm thinking continuance. I was going to interrupt.
well,
you.
no, I know you're going to continue. I mean, I know you're going to continue.
It was just a
but-
vote motion to close.
Well, I
Right.
can withdraw that.
Oh.
I know you're going to want to continue, but I also would like you to think seriously about the points that Maury brought up. That if you're going to propose, if you're going to bring us a new plan, bring us something that's much more in line with what the replacement is. But also what you're trying to do is show environmental improvement. Because as Maury said, what you're doing is you're saying we're going to have a new dock and it's going to be better environmentally, but actually, while we have the chance, we're going to make a dock that's twice as big. Well, that doesn't, you can't have it both ways.
I'm not disagreeing. If I didn't try, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Mike, I also
All right.
think, and I know it's going to be hard, but I also think it might be helpful when you come back. I don't know if you're going to come back with this design in a smaller footprint or, a smaller structure, or if you're going to go back with the original one. But I do think it would be important to stake that terminus of that float so the board sees during low tide, like what, how much water is there? I mean, if Betsy couldn't figure it out and Steve's trying to project and he thinks it's mud, I think it's really important to have that stake out there. Just shows where that fixed T is going to end.
Okay, well, as a
Whether
follow,
it's this design or a rebuild design, because we don't have the benefit of having that ramp and float out there right now.
I am going to request a continuance, and I'm going to recommend to my client that the path to an approval would be to rebuild effectively in kind, but with a fixed pier instead of a ramp and flow. So if I come back with that, in the end of the existing fixed pier, if I could just share briefly one more time, I'll be brief. If the end of the fixed pier is right here, and I'm going to propose to rebuild this to a fixed pier 55 feet long, we're basically talking about like 6 or 7 feet. Do you really need me to put stakes out in the mud to see that distance?
Well, if you're going to come back with the fit and we can go out to the end of that dock, the board's going to have to decide that.
I mean, I can.
It was a lot different when you're angling it and then you're angling the float. And
I understand that. I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think if we're going to build it in the same place, and the only, if it were the summertime, the ramp and float would be in, and I'd say, this is what we're rebuilding, but they took it up for the season. So we're talking about a short distance to have to mobilize a skiff, and it's mud and it's work to put stakes in 6 or 7 feet from the end of the fixed pier. I'll do it if you think it's necessary. I'm hoping I don't need to do it.
How about some sort of a stake or demarcation on the end of the fixed piece now that says it's going to be an additional X feet?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think most of us can visualize what 6 or 10 feet would be.
If that's appropriate, that's makes things much simpler.
Yeah. Anybody disagree with that?
Mr. Chair, I'll withdraw my motion to close.
In my second.
And you see what this is, Mike? It's Christmas time.
I was going to say.
Hopefully your redesign will meet the good criteria and we won't need to award.
Too
this
early
to
for
you.
coal, Commissioner Courtney. I'll be seeing you again before Christmas.
Just in case
Gas
you
and oil
didn't know,
prices the
that's
way they are, we
cold.
might want coal. Jen, what do we have for a date?
hang on one second.
Hang on.
Jamie,
Mike, I might have to push you out till after the first of the year.
I wasn't going to ask for anything sooner than the 5th.
Appreciate
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so it's
Maury?
gonna have to be after the first of the year. So January 5th is our first hearing.
Maury had something.
Thank you, co-chairs. Maury, you're on mute.
The person that sent in the letter did ask or stated that there's not been a ramp or a float in over 15 years based on personal observations and satellite photos supplied. I don't know. I don't think that's relevant. I just wanted to, because if it had a permit, just because you didn't put it in the water, I don't know. I
And
just
the
wanted to
floats
know.
on the, if you went to the site, you see the flow.
Yeah.
This property's been in a family where the folks got older and it recently sold. They weren't able to manhandle the ramp and float in. We have an interim permit.
I just wanted to address
Yeah.
that for the person that wrote in. Thank you.
And Mike, can you please explain to your client when that ramp and float does go in? It has to be brought in professionally. They can't be dragging that float or, oh, you're going to a fix, so it doesn't matter. Forget it.
Mhm. See, that's
Okay.
such an improvement.
I'll make a motion to
Good try,
continue
Mike.
this to January 5th.
Bird,
Second.
second.
All right. Mike, did the 5th work for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the motion and the second on the table is to continue this till 1/5 next year. All right,
Thank
Betsy.
you.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until January 5th, 2022. Thank you, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you. Courtney, I'll bring your gift to the next meeting.
Can't wait to see that.
Mike, do you have another one this evening? Oh, where'd he go?
Picked them out already.
He might have.
Maybe he
He
just kicked
left as
himself
soon as
out.
he could.
Yeah. Run. All right, next up, Town of Falmouth, 0 West Avenue, map 04A 29, parcel 0000673A, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install 8 12-inch piles, 6 12-foot by 6-foot floats, and a 4 by 14-foot aluminum ramp and a timber pier. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted, this is a Home to McGrath project. I promoted Nate Goshgarian up to present the project. Nate, is it going to be you or is it going to be Mike tonight?
It's going to be me for
Okay,
this one, yeah.
okay.
All right, thank you. All right,
Welcome, Nate.
hello, members of the commission, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Nate Goshgarian with Holmes McGrath. Permission to share my screen, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, so the subject property tonight is 0 West Ave, otherwise known as the Public Landing in Wild Harbor, which is in North Falmouth. The property currently features a bulkhead, a sandy lot, a sandy gravel parking lot, a couple of jungle gyms, and a couple of kayak racks. Resources on or with 100 feet of the property include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, coastal dune, coastal beach, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. So what we are proposing tonight is a pier ramp and float, which would go directly north of the existing licensed bulkhead. It measures just under 95 feet in total. And it also includes 12 piles, which would be driven by a land-based crane. No need for a barge in this case, and access would be from the direct east off of West Ave. Really, the goal of this project is to, I don't know how to say this, facilitate the historically reported difficulties of entering and exiting the water at this location in consideration of the fluctuating tides. At this point, I normally tie into the staff report. There weren't too many comments there or questions. I think in terms of the presentation at this point, I'll wrap it up, Mr. Chairman, hand it back over, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this project.
Short and sweet. Appreciate it.
No problem. Stop.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is a town-sponsored project. This project is coming out of the Harbormasters and Waterways Committee. If any of you have gone down to Wild Harbor, you understand the difficulties that one could have loading and unloading passengers in this area. The Harbormasters thought was this would be a public benefit in this area. This is a velocity zone. So the town is looking at the public benefit that is going to be derived from having these floating docks there, much like the floating docks that the board approved over in West Falmouth Harbor. And we have gotten some comments from abutters and the harbor. I did call the harbor master today. There's not going to be any permanent docking to this boat. It's transient docking only. He said 15 minutes to a half hour for the ability to load and unload passengers, and then the boats are gone. This is not something where boats will be tied up indefinitely or overnight or anything like that. It's transient only. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Steve, we'll start with you.
No comments. Again, I was there at low tide and we need some help for people getting in and out there. It's a very practical solution.
Courtney,
No comments.
Pat,
No comments.
Peter,
I support the public benefit.
excellent. I concur with that. Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Maury,
No comments. I agree with Steve.
Betsy, you're always last. What's up with that?
What a surprise. I agree with Steve too. And Maury. It'd be nice. This will be nice. This is much better. I can't imagine trying to get into a boat at low tide, hanging off one of those ladders.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function? Please.
No, Mr. Chairman, not at this time. I don't see anyone's hand raised either, so.
I'll make a motion to
Excellent.
close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. There's no other comment. All right. Betsy,
My last comment is, would they always be so short and sweet? Gladfelter, aye.
as she makes it longer. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Nate.
All right, thank you for your time, everybody.
Nate, are you staying on for, am I putting you back into attendees or are you done for the night?
No, I will join him in his office.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, continued hearings under notice of intent. First up, William Trifero, 330 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct 2 landings and 2 additions, to install a dry well and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think I just promoted George Collins up to present his project. George, are you there? Yep, this is a George project.
Okay, Betsy, can you give me the quorum, please?
I can, but is this 3:30 or 2:18?
This is 3:30.
Okay.
3:30.
It's, and the quorum will be the same for both. Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Jamie, Peter, Pat.
Did you say
Not
Maury?
Not
Not Maury,
No.
not Steve.
not Mary, not Maury, not Steve.
Nothing personal. All right. Mr. Collins, you're up, sir.
George, do you need me to share my screen like I did the last time for you, or have you figured out your technical difficulties?
I think I should be able to make it work. Let's see here.
Okay.
Let's see here. Share screen. Let's see here. Did that
Work.
pop up?
That worked, George.
It's my first time. Please excuse my inexperience.
You did great.
Thank you. Yeah, so for the record, George Collins, registered professional engineer representing Mr. Trefero. The last time we met, there was some questions regarding the location of the mitigation areas. We originally had all the mitigation along the northerly lot line in this area and in the northeasterly corner. What we did is that continued all the way up to that's northwest corner of the property. So what we did is we removed the, let's see, I'm trying to think here, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize, but I think I have an old PDF. I apologize. This is not the most current PDF.
George, what's the revision date you have on it?
Let's see here. I'm just looking at two of the trees. This is not the right, I'm sharing the wrong PDF. I apologize. Jen, would it be in position to share my most recent PDF? Otherwise, I'll have to convert one.
No, the most recent one, I'm assuming, is the revision plan dated November 26th.
Yeah, I think this is something that I'm just looking at, there's two of the trees that I definitely know are in the wrong location. I think I apologize. The two trees right here are in the original location where I showed them before up in this area. So again, I apologize. This is not the correct PDF.
Okay, George, but that's what the most recent plan I have shows is those two trees in those areas on the south side. So if you look at your revision block, you have 8 revisions, the last one being November 26, 21.
Okay.
Is that what your plan says?
So basically the difference between what I'm showing you and what I intended to show you, these two trees here at the bottom are actually located up in this area here. I think I sent this out and I think I created this PDF. I created this PDF in-house and I sent you the PDF that I sent you does show these two, the plans that you have and the PDF that I sent you, these two trees here are up in this location here. And those are these two trees here and these bushes here. Those are that's the mitigation from the septic project prior to my client purchasing the property.
Okay, so the plan we have, George, in front of me, the hard copy plan I have has that. It also has the same revision date as my PDF. That has, I just need you to put another revision date on that plan with the moved trees and send that to us, okay?
Okay, does the information you have show the two trees up in this location?
Hard copy plan we have that has a revision date of November 26, 2021. The hard copy I'm looking at has the two trees moved. The PDF I have that was sent to us does not have them moved. So,
okay. So yeah, if you could reference at this point, if you could reference the hard copy that shows. So that's the only difference between.
Okay.
So anyway, so again, so I apologize for that technical glitch. I called up an old PDF that I think the one that I sent you, but the hard copy you have is correct. What-
Okay.
What it is I didn't want to put these two trees here, but it's because it's right next to the septic system. So I proposed them up there. That's where they were shown originally on the last hearing. So that was, I think, one of the primary concerns was all the mitigation was pushed up into this corner. So we added some mitigation in this area, and we added mitigation in this area, mitigation plantings. And then based on the staff report, the current point of contention is the ramp in this location right here. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all, Jennifer.
Well, I mean, it just, in the photos, it looks like the ramp is larger than it was. And then hang on, let me grab the staff report. Yeah, so in the, if the board looks in your staff report, we have aerials from April 14th of 2020 and March 30th of 2021. And to our eyes, it looks like the ramp is bigger than it was, a year or so ago. But that's something the board can look at and decide.
Yeah, so Mr. Truffello, I'm not, I believe he is, I guess he's in the waiting room or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you want to allow him into the meeting, but basically his position is that he did rebuild that ramp and the steps, but the footprint itself did not change. Also, his neighbor to the south here at 334 Edgewater Drive sent the Conservation Commission an email confirming that he's been there, I think, since 2004, and the location and the configuration and size of that ramp and the steps have not changed. So, that's basically our general position on that. And again, that's based off of my client, the information, firsthand information from my client and by the neighbor. So. And then I apologize. The other thing that we did add is we did in the pathway down to the water, we added seagrass plantings and provided some specifications regarding these actually American beach grass plantings. We're adding 150 feet of seagrass plantings. That pathway right now is approximately 7 or 8 feet wide. We're going to narrow that down to 4 feet. Again, based off of the staff report, it appeared to the staff that that area had become wider over recently. So basically we're basically trying to restore that area per staff recommendations. And again, the only other thing I'm not sure if you want, I'm not sure if it's Mr. or Mrs. Truffello, but I believe they're in the waiting room. I don't know if you can let them in case they want to elaborate on anything.
Absolutely, George. I need you to stop sharing your screen now.
Okay, how do I do that? Stop sharing? Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. Let me see. I see Bill Trufaro. So I'm promoting Mr. Chairman, Mr. Trufaro up as a panelist.
Nice.
Okay, Mr. Trufaro is coming in as a panelist. Mr. Trufaro, you need to unmute yourself and turn on your camera.
Is that better?
That is better.
Thank you for having me.
One thing I do want to share, Mr. Chairman, is I do want to share my screen for a moment, and I'll show you what the staff's concern is about the ramp. If you allow me to share my screen.
No.
Oh, no, okay.
Why would I say no?
Oh, I thought you did, I'm sorry. So does the board see the screen?
Yes.
This is the ramp, April 14th of 2020. That is the ramp, March 30th, 2021.
Hmm?
That is the ramp, October 2nd, 2021. So that is the concern the staff has about the ramp getting larger.
Well, if I may speak, I don't know if it's my turn or not, but there was 3 sections of placement of ramps that were made that would help wheelchair get down to the front of the beach. Those were just placed and then removed, along with some lighting that was asked to be removed and fencing. All that was done. So that part was removed. One of the photos showed it that it was still there, but it's not there now.
Okay, what about the width and length of the ramp that goes from April 14th of 2020 to March 30th of 2021? That looks like one piece. I get the October, that was the length.
Yeah.
That you,
Agreed on that, but on the other part is I did, as George had mentioned, reconstruct the existing damaged and really terrible ramp, if you will. And at that point, we did not make it any larger. We kept it the same. But if you look at the photos, one's taken from really high up and then one's taken much closer down. So it appeared, and you can barely make out the rocks. And then a closer photo, which appears to be a larger one, you're much closer down to it. So part of it is, I think it's perceived to be a bigger ramp.
well, the board can decide. We're just pointing that out to them, sir.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did you not say that was removed, sir?
Well, a couple of the photos, there was something that had been removed. And then Jen also put some photos on that, as I think is what her argument is. So, but one of them that's much larger, those that have all been removed.
The October ramp sections were removed, Mr. Chairman, is what he's saying.
Thank you.
And again, if I may, the reason why the extensions were put down was because Bill has a handicap, a member of his family is handicapped, and he also, his neighbor who sent that email is also handicapped and uses it for access down to the water. So it just, it does serve a true function. And I think at the time, they were just concerned about the condition. He was concerned about the condition of it. So we basically replaced the ramp and just to make it a little bit more structurally sound.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Trifaro?
No, I think George mentioned that about the trees everywhere that have been, we added from the septic from the previous owner that did not do the work. We are doing that, I guess. And I don't know if he also mentioned that there's some trees in the front that have been added as well. Again, part of that septic scenario.
Right.
Oh, well, there's one other thing, I guess. My wife and I had been discussing this over the past months. Not so much what I'm going to say now, but just in general, the whole scope of work. I'd consider removing, there's a set of stairs that were also there from original, and they were also rebuilt, as everybody has known. I could remove those, but the ramp really is a very purposeful for us to have that. I mean, there's no way to access down to the beach or to that lower level. It's like almost a 4-foot drop. So it's either stairs or someone's jumping on top of boulders. And the ramp has been there from what I've been told, more than 17 years. And the stairs for that matter. And again, to repeat myself, I did rebuild them, but exactly to the footprint that they were. So I would consider removing the stairs. That would help, perhaps.
All about the permit. All right, commissioner comments, Betsy,
No comments.
Courtney,
No comments.
Kevin,
No comments.
Pat,
No comments.
Peter,
No comments.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Are there any other comments from the applicants?
Please excuse my ignorance, but so do you guys just discuss this later this evening? And then
No.
George, you've only
Sorry.
done RDAs in front of us, I
I
think.
know,
So what they'll do is they'll close the hearing.
yeah,
They will take the matter up next week. They will vote an order of conditions on the 8th. And then we will send that order of conditions out to you. They don't vote the same night they close.
Okay.
It's a policy of theirs. They like to have a week to think about
Okay.
conditions, and things like that.
all right, excellent, thank you.
All right. Voting. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury, I'm sorry. Never mind, Maury. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
it is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Trefero.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. George, you're staying on for the next one?
Yes, yep, and Bill, I'll call you shortly.
All right, next up, Robert DeVasto, 218 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct additions, to construct a retaining wall and steps, to convert an existing deck into living space, and to install mitigation plantings. And it's the same quorum, so neither Maury nor Steve are on this one. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Collins is still here, ready to present his project at 218 Edgewater Drive East.
Excellent. Mr. Collins, you're up.
Jen, if you could allow, or if I could share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Again, George Collins, I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Robert DeVasto. So I believe the couple of points of contention from the last time that we were before the commission. One was that there was a pipe in the out on the edge of the out in the salt marsh that they had tied a boat up to. That subsequently that post has been removed and the boat has been removed. The other item that was that came up was that there's an area right in this particular location. I calculated it to be 108 square feet, 108 square foot area that was pavement that was added without a permit. And because we were running out of room in the backyard, I think, actually it was one of the commission members suggested that we can actually also use any area within the 100 foot of the top of coastal bank for mitigation planting. So we added the 3-to-1 mitigation plantings in this area here. The other thing that we did is we added some extra detail to the plan. There's the trash bins in this location that were added to the plan. And there was a ramp that was not shown. The shed has a ramp that wasn't shown on the plan. So there's a few small items that were not depicted on my plan that we added to the plan. So, and I believe that was the primary changes made to the plan since the last meeting.
All right, you can stop sharing, sir. Jen?
And I do believe Mr. DeVasto may be in the waiting room. Whether he wants to add anything to the conversation, I'm not sure, but
Okay. I can promote Mr. DeVasco up to a panelist. And Mr. DeVasco is now a panelist. So Mr. DeVasco, you need to turn your camera on and your audio on, please. Thank you.
Okay. So I assume you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you, can't see you.
You can't see me, so let's see if we can actually get you to see me.
There you
Okay.
go,
Okay.
with the northern lights.
Northern Lights, absolutely.
All
No, I
right.
just, the only comment I have really is, you guys do a heck of a job. It is not an easy job as I sit through here and listen. And that's my only comment. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, but you're still not getting approved tonight.
No, it's okay. It doesn't, when it happens, it happens.
All right, thank you for that. We appreciate it. It's nice when people notice. We try our best.
Mhm.
Jen?
Just two quick things. Staff would recommend that, a condition be made that the post and the boat not be able to be tied up again without being properly permitted, and that's kind of tough to do. So that kind of makeshift outhaul does need to be permanently removed. And George, you have a note on your plan about plantings to be determined by conservation agent based on site recommendations, plant availability, and or by applicant's arborist. No. It will be by the staff and not by the applicant's arborist.
I mean, whatever,
So we'll do that. So we'll just condition that we'll work with the applicant on the appropriate plantings for that area.
Perfect.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
Not at this time, Mr.
Thank you. All right, commission comments. Kevin?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Pat?
No comments, thank you.
Peter?
No comments.
Courtney?
I have nothing to add to the conversation.
All right. Betsy?
No comments.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Make a
you.
motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird,
Our
second.
second.
Wow. It's a competition. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing, take it under advisement. If there's no further comments. All right, I'm calling for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
DeVasco.
Thank you very much.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help.
Mr. Chairman, can you do me a favor? Can you just repeat that who has been continued? There's an awful lot of people in our attendee list, and I'm afraid some of them may have not have heard that announcement at the beginning.
Okay, so the next one is continued, which is Alyssa and George Syhos, 94 Emmons Road.
Continue to when, Jamie?
12/8.
Okay, thanks.
Bear with me. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 12/8.
What about
And
the
then
Woods-
can I get to that, please? So the next one that would be continued is Woods Hole Oceanographic, 86 Water Street. That one has been continued until 12/8.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
the-
Chairman.
You're welcome. So the next one up is Falmouth Housing Corporation, 763 Main Street and 24 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to demolish and remove an existing building and paved parking areas to construct and maintain a 48-unit apartment building, municipal sewer connection, paved driveways, parking areas, and utilities, and for all associated grading and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mike McGrath and Laura Monahan up to represent the applicants. Mike or Laura, is there anybody else I'm promoting up on your project team at this time?
I don't think so.
Hi, everyone. Linda Clark, if she's there.
Yep, Linda's here. I just wasn't sure. Okay.
Amy,
Yes.
is this the last one or do we have anything after this?
We have an enforcement after this.
Okay, because everybody's on it except Maury.
Okay. It's up to you, Maury. You can take off if you want.
I'll wait.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, Mr. McGrath, you're up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael McGrinch. I work for the firm of Holmes. I'm sorry, Michael McGrath. I work for the firm of Holmes and McGrath. And this is continuing.
What a great
Really
slip.
amuse yourself.
If the shoe fits. This is
This is being recorded, Mike.
hearing for project at the intersection of Main Street and Scranton Avenue. And this is a 40B, and this has been continued several times. The real purpose of this hearing is that the town referred the site design to a firm named Beals and Thomas. And Beals and Thomas has filed a written critique, and then I have filed a response. So rather than go over and replow and all of the issues that were before, in the discussions with staff, it was thought that we should best focus on the Beals and Thomas report. I do just quickly, could I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
This is
You're not sharing yet.
we're not sharing?
No.
Nate, help.
See, when you said, can I share my screen? I thought you were asking permission. You were actually asking if you knew how, right?
That's
You seeing it now?
Can you see that?
Yes.
There you go.
Good night.
This is
Thanks,
just a
Nate.
simple graphic that was filed with the original hearing. This is the existing conditions. That's the bank building, this Main Street and Scranton Avenue. And the blue line that comes across here is the floodplain, and there's a funny odd-shaped coastal bank that is a landform in this case, but there's actually a failing concrete wall that is at or near the property line all along this area. The other thing I wanted to show you was, this is a graphic that shows here's Main Street, here's Scranton Avenue. We're actually 210 feet away from open water. So the only issue we have is a coastal bank. And there's one of the coastal banks doesn't face the ocean. And the other coastal bank, in between that coastal bank and Falmouth near the harbor, is a very significant motel building. So when it comes to the impacts as far as on coastal banks, these are man-made coastal banks that are situated some distance from the resource areas that matter. This is a
this is a copy of the proposed site plan. And I propose to leave that up and I'll discuss the Bales and Thomas report. I've written you a letter dated November 2nd that is, I'm sorry, October 19th. I wrote a letter that commented on the Beals and Thomas reports. And the bottom line is that most of these do not really concern the commission under the Wetlands Protection Act. But in any case, there are several issues that do matter. One of the things they brought up is that I've designed the site in accordance with the state mandated drainage systems, but I did not do it way up here. I used leaching structures similar to what I've used in this town. You've heard it before, but I've designed the drainage for 23 miles of road with no flooding. The town of Falmouth DPW actually uses spreadsheets that I developed on calculating the size of drainage. The other point is that if you look at the size of this, I don't have the physical room for this affordable housing project to have one of your conforming systems. And in my mind, it's way beyond 100 foot from the coastal bank. So I see no valid reason to basically redesign this in any particular way. The other point is one of the things they talked about was impact on the coastal pond overlay district, but this project's going to be connected to the municipal sewer. We're actually probably going to make the site better in that we are actually now treating water that used to escape from the site. So there might be a slight improvement to water quality of Falmouth Harbor. In any case, most of the other comments really relate to the application under 40B. And in any case, I believe that this is the most appropriate way of designing this site. And the bottom line is, I believe that the design of the stormwater system that is up against this concrete wall is appropriate. There is a concrete wall here that's an artificial man-made coastal bank, but to be blunt, it's failing. If you go up to it, I went up to it before some of the plants were there, and you could actually physically shake it. So it's not a suitable long-term wall. We actually show that it's going to be removed and replaced. So in any case, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have as far as the drainage or the impacts on these artificial man-made coastal banks.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. All right. Laura, do you have anything you want to add before we proceed with commenting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for your information, the Zoning Board of Appeals did approve the comprehensive permit for the project. And the decision was filed with the town clerk. There is a condition of that 40B approval that it be obviously that the applicant receive an order of conditions from your board under the Wetlands Protection Act. So after that thorough review, the 40B permit has been issued, which we're very pleased to report. So we're hoping that with the wealth of information that's been put in your file, that you're satisfied as well, that the environmental issues are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
Just a few quick comments. First of all, to the to the applicants and the project team, thank you for giving us the time to get the peer review comments. It's helpful. I believe it makes it for a better project for the town all around, and it's just helpful for the board. So thank you for being patient through that process. Just a couple of things, and I spoke with Linda about these today. Just a couple of conditions that, you know, we'll put in. Simple things like when you're inspecting the, you know, the forebays and the stormwater management system, that you inspect the catch basins and the catch basins as well. That was kind of missed. So simple things that you'll see in the permit, we'll recommend to the commission to put as conditions, and it'll mainly be from a stormwater maintenance and operational standpoint. That said, I think the commission should feel comfortable with the review and the responses for the stormwater management system. The only thing the board is going to have to determine is whether or not the modifications to the top of that coastal bank are still within the interest of storm damage prevention and flood control. And I think that's very easy for the commission to determine, given the distance this is from Falmouth and Harbor. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add?
I do not at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. All right. Betsy, we'll start with you.
I have no comments. Thanks for the additional information.
All right. Courtney?
No comments.
All right. I would like to reiterate, thank you for all the information. Evan?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Pat?
No comments. Agree with everybody about streamlining this first. Thank you.
Peter?
Thank you for the additional work, but I have a question about something that I want to ask Jen. With the revised plans, does it meet the state standards for water drainage?
I believe it does.
Thank you. No further comments.
Thank you. Steve?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function? Please.
No chat and nobody's hand is raised.
Okay.
Motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right. All right. Are there any other comments from the applicants?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
No call
All
from
right.
you, Mike.
Mr. McScrooge, huh?
Like Grinch, not McScrooge.
I'd like
like
to, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to compliment Beals and Thomas, as well as Jen, for, you know, all their hard work on this very complicated stormwater, you know, drainage and all the issues that went around it in a relatively short time period. I think the peer review consultant acted very efficiently, which is always, you know, really appreciated from the applicant, especially when we're under a short timeline to meet the funding approval. So thank you for that. And to you as well, all of you, for your work, and happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
All right. So
Thank
we
you.
have a motion and a second on the table to close the hearing. There's no other comments. Going to take the vote. Betsy, I'm sorry.
Gladfelter.
I just saw Linda Clark is up. Did she have anything to add?
I just wanted to thank you all, ditto, as far as what Laura had stated. The town has been great, Concom, all the departments in getting through this process. It was, we did have time restraints, as Laura stated, and it's really, the town's been great in getting through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we all want to see projects like this go through. We just want to do our due diligence. That's all. All right. Voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Matt and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
And before we take the next step, I want to acknowledge the participation of our Board of Selectmen liaison, Sam Patterson. Thank you for your help, Sam. Next up. Next up is a hearings under an enforcement order. First up, Pizzuti Family Inc., 279 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted construction of a structure within conservation jurisdiction. Maury, thanks for your patience. Appreciate you sticking around.
No problem.
Jen?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Newton's going to take this one over.
All righty, Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jen, could you please promote Craig Marchionda and Paul Marchionda?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I sent all of you the staff report for this enforcement hearing. It's located at 279 Wild Harbor in North Falmouth. And basically what we're dealing with here was a lapsed order of conditions that the work was never done. But during that time period or sometime after that time period, the homeowner had constructed a wooden wall of some sort on the coastal beach. So right in the resource areas. I'll share a picture with you to show you. There was a photo included in the staff report I sent you, but ultimately staff is recommending the removal of that wall in entirety to restore to its conditions prior to existing. So at this time, I'm just gonna share that photo with you guys.
One second, Kevin. There's a Joseph Bergen that would like to be promoted up to a panelist. He is stating that he's representing the applicant. So I'm promoting him up as well, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that, Kevin.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, Jen. So as I was saying, I'm just gonna share the photo of the wall for you guys, and then we can open up for comments. Okay, so as you can see, this is the structure I'm referring to.
Okay.
So it starts here. There's a dock a little bit to the left of where this picture ends, and then the wall continues underneath that dock and connects into the riprap of the adjacent property. And just for your information, the order of conditions was for a soft solution for bamboo jute matting, I believe it was. But as you can see, that was never implemented. At this time, I'll hand it over to the homeowner's representatives to kind of address the staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joe Brodigan. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm an attorney, and my office is at 40 Broad Street in Boston, Massachusetts, and I represent the owner of this property, Pizzuti Family Inc. They've owned this property since January of 1993, and there, as Mr. Newton pointed out, there is an outstanding order of conditions for a soft solution for to restore a deteriorating coastal bank. That order of conditions was recorded in September of 2006. The work was never performed, but recently, the company, this Pizzuti Family Inc. is it's a family company, and the head of the family is a gentleman named Donato Pizzuti, who is an older gentleman who has relocated to Florida, hasn't been to this property for almost 10 years. And recently, his daughter, who is also in the audience here tonight, was at the property and realized that this wall had been constructed improperly without a permit. And it had been done so at a time, I believe, when her father was in control of the property and was involved in that process. Unfortunately, Mr. Pizzuti doesn't have much of a recollection of the circumstances surrounding the installation of the wall and who did it or why it was done. But this is a situation in which this enforcement action does not arise out of a complaint or discovery by any third party, but it was a self-reported situation by Mr. Pizzuti's daughter, who came down to the Conservation Committee and reported this incident on her own, realizing that it had not been done correctly. So we stand here today, obviously understanding that it wasn't done properly, and our whole goal here is to try to restore it and to fix what was done incorrectly. And I believe that involves removing the structure. And in that vein, we retained the Mashonda associates, Craig Mashonda, Paul Mashonda, who are also here. They have drawn up a site plan and proposed a solution to the board that we'd like you to consider, that we believe is the least intrusive way to fix what was done wrong here. So at this time, I'd like to, if it's okay with the board, to turn it over to Craig Mashonda for him to explain to you his findings and what he believes is the appropriate solution in these circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Craig Marchanda here, Marchanda and Associates. Thank you, Kevin and Joe, for the great introduction. As discussed, there is an order of conditions on the property and the work never began. And now we're left with this unrelated wall that wasn't part of the order, that we would like to just do the right thing and get the commission happy and on board. And as mentioned, we believe our proposal is the least disruptive way to resolve the issue and get rid of the wall. We're trying to avoid any subsurface disturbance if at all possible. Anything like that would require machinery, all the related access issues. So we were hoping to just cut off the piles at grade. It's essentially a soldier pile lagging wall. Our hope was to remove the lagging first and cut off the piles at grade, and everything could be hauled off by hand without the use of any heavy machinery. And we think that would be the least invasive, least disruptive alternative. I was certainly happy to discuss other options with the commission here, but we think that would be a good way to get rid of this wall without causing any more harm. And as Joe had mentioned, we have unfortunately no information about when this was constructed or how it was constructed. We don't know how deep the piles are. So it's a fairly small wall in the scheme of things. It's not too long. It's roughly half a dozen piles. I think there's 8 or 9, maybe. And we think that would be a good solution, just to cut them and carry them out, if that makes sense. And as Joe said, we do have a plan. If you'd like me to share my screen, I can show the plan with what we sent to the commission in PDF format. But that is it's a pretty basic proposal because we're trying to minimize any disruption to the area.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sure. Let's see. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this fine. Looks like it's up on my end here.
Yep.
So as Kevin's picture showed, his picture looks like it was taken from the dock, aiming kind of down and left on the screen here, showing that longer portion of the wall. And as he mentioned, it continues on the right side of the dock a little bit as well. So our proposal, as I mentioned, would be to remove the lagging first and simply cut the piles at grade and just carry everything out. That would avoid any potential for heavy machinery in there in the resource area. We think we could do that type of work at low tide conditions with a couple of laborers and a saw, really no heavy machinery at all. So that would be what we would like to propose to get that wall out of there.
All right, you can stop sharing.
Sure. And happy to answer any questions or address any comments, but that's pretty much all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Newton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So Jen, I had a discussion on the method there to remove the wall, and it is nice that this proposal would have the least amount of impacts, but at the same point, we also discussed the fact that those pilings in and of themselves may affect erosion there or promote erosion. We really don't know because it hasn't been studied or anything or permitted or anything like that. So ultimately, it's a recommendation from staff to have the wall removed in its entirety, but that is going to be up to the commission.
All right. All right. We'll do some commissioner comments. Betsy?
Well, so my question is, you have the wall there, so basically it's acting as a hard solution right now. And you had permitted a soft solution, which isn't there. And if you take the wall away, however we decide the wall's going to disappear, aren't you going to have the same problem with erosion? So as long as you're doing this project, shouldn't it include come back with a soft solution as well? That's my concern.
Yeah, I understand your thoughts. Unfortunately, given the age of this 2006 order of conditions and being by a different party, I don't really know the full motivation for the proposal, or again why this wall was put up, or by whom and when exactly. We're not sure really any details of the construction of it. So in the our primary focus right now is to rectify the enforcement order and satisfy that and hopefully pursue a certificate of compliance, as the other order, the work never started.
Is there a pending sale on this property?
So at this time, there's no purchase and sale agreement. There was an offer that was made at some point, and it's kind of in limbo at this stage. So we're in the process. There is very likely there could be a sale here. There was an attempt to try to sell it, but everything is basically on hold at this point.
Betsy, you'll remember this one because this is one of the first ones I went to, and I was out there with you. It was done by CLE Engineering. Carlos Pena had, I believe, originally proposed it. It was like coconut rolls.
Coconut, yeah, a coconut fiber.
You and I believe, on the site way back when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was called a coconut net straw blend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of the first sites I went to, and I was with you, Bets.
I mean, I would like to clear this up too, but if you take that wall away, you might be causing more environmental damage right now, because obviously they wouldn't have asked to put that original 2004 or 2005, they wouldn't have asked to do that if there wasn't erosion there.
We can't leave the wall there, Betsy. It can't stay there.
Yeah, well, I agree that the wall has to come out.
And I think the erosion issue will be basically is, from what I can read between the lines with this, with the pending sale or however you want to phrase that, it's going to be the responsibility of a new
owner,
property owner. Correct.
Okay. The other concern that I have with this method, I mean, I understand that this is probably, it seems like the least environmentally damaging method, except do we know what those, what kind of wood was put in? I mean, it may be that there's something that's leaching out, something we would prefer not to be being leached out there also.
That's a great question. And unfortunately, we don't have a exact answer to that, but based on a visual observation, it appears to be your typical pile used in dock construction everywhere. We have no reason to think it's anything otherwise.
Well, we have a variety of kinds of piles that are used.
From the pictures, it looked like pressure treated,
Mm-hmm.
which would have been, you know, back then would have been the CCA. Kevin, can you put the picture back up for a minute, please?
That's all I have, Jamie.
Good thing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Gives you kind of a closer view of that.
No, what I was looking for was what's the practicality of getting a machine in there to pull those piles?
Oh, I mean, the machine, I mean, that bank it's vegetated and it's eroding. So I really don't want a machine going.
Yep.
They'd
No,
have
I'm
to
just
come
trying.
in-
That's why I want to address the issue of cutting versus pulling. Right.
They'd have to come in through the canal, Jamie.
Right. Is that practical? Okay, Courtney.
I'm with Betsy on this thing. I'd like to see this, what was originally permitted, put in there to replace, instead of, when you just yank that wall out, you're just creating an issue. As a practical matter, if I were the buyer, I wouldn't want to buy it without this problem being resolved. Why should I pay for something that the previous owner was supposed to do? But that's not a conservation issue. No other comments.
Thank you. Jen, if they pull this out, is that going to resolve that? Is that going to be, will that allow that 2006 order to be cleared up?
Correct, yes. So like the 2000 order, we could say the work was never done, issue issue compliance, but we're holding it up because of this violation, because it clearly it was some type of armoring or erosion control that was put in. It wasn't done in accordance with the plan.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add to Jen's response there, that's pending any other differences on site too, that would be looked at during the COC review.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Kevin.
Kevin O'Brien.
They can't leave it in and they can't take it out. At this point, putting in the soft solution will be more difficult than if you hadn't done anything in the first place. So I think they have a real problem on their hands if they are attempting to solve the problem. No further comments. Just thought I'd help.
Always look forward to your participation. Maury.
Well, am I on?
Yes.
Muted, okay. My mute button doesn't show up.
Artie.
I really, I know. The environmental concern I have is once they pull that out, then the bank is gonna slump. I mean, it's gonna erode, there's no doubt about it. I understand they don't really want to address that at this moment. But then does that become an enforcement in itself that it's causing environmental impacts with the bank collapsing in? I don't know. I understand they've got to take it out. They can do it by barge. I mean, they just come in and they just put the spuds down and haul it out. That's the best way to do it. Going over that bank is not the way you're going to do it. Cutting it off, it's just leaving things behind for somebody to deal with. If they are going to do a soft solution at some point, then they're going to run into these pressure treated posts, and it is pressure treated. It's the old CCA. And it even looks like they put a few new ones in somewhere down the end. But I think Kevin's recommendation to haul it all out and call it a day. And that's it.
Thank you. Pat?
I agree with everything Maury said. I have nothing else to add.
All right. Peter?
I'm agreeing to Maury's solution because it's evidently CCA treated that would contaminate the environment, and it should be out probably by barge or whatever. It should be out. Now, I don't think I would personally hold up the project to say that they have to resurrect the old 2006 and have a soft solution, but the minimum would be to get the unapproved wall out. No further comments.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the waterway, but I would say that the posts have to be removed. The future holds whatever the future holds, but let's take care of this enforcement order and pull those posts out of there and that wall.
Thank you.
If I may say something, is that okay?
Yes.
Now, by taking it out, if the board is going to insist on it, the piles being removed, and I'd ask for the opportunity to come back to you after we speak to a marine contractor to get out there and take a look at it to see if they could do some studies to see how deep those piles are, to see if there's any way to remove them in a way that doesn't impact the bank without the use of a barge, because bringing the barge and the spuds is going to be prohibitively expensive, to remedy the situation. It may turn out to be the only way to do it that's acceptable to the board, but at this point, without having the marine contractor go out there and do some testing and to see how deep these piles are and to see if there's any other way to pull them. We don't know if how much deeper they are below the mud line at this point. And there may be a way to pull them out without impacting the bank and without having to spend the money by bringing a barge into that area. So I would ask if the board is going to rule that these piles have to be pulled out and they can't be cut at this point, to give us an opportunity to come up with to explore an alternate solution other than just by barge.
Staff could entertain that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I don't think we were forcing the issue of the process, just simply stating that there seems to be a general consensus that they need to be pulled out in their entirety. I don't think we intended to dictate how you do it. Obviously, we don't want you to ruin anything else, but all right. So Jen, what's the proper procedure then? Continue?
I would continue the hearing. How long do you need, Attorney Bardigan, to have somebody go out there, or?
I mean, I think some hearing dates in January, is that?
That's fine. I was hoping you would say that. We're pretty booked for the next 2 weeks. Our first hearing is January 5th. Would that give you enough time to get somebody out there?
It would. Is there room on the one in December to do it? I spoke to a contractor this morning, somebody that could go out there and take a look at it pretty quickly. It's just that, as you alluded to before, there is a potential sale, and we don't want to bounce this out too fast, too far out. We don't want to lose that sale.
No, I understand that. We are incredibly busy, so that's going to be up to the board. And I have a couple of them looking at me going like this, shaking their heads now. But I mean, just to give the board an idea, the 15th, you potentially could have Hui. I mean, we're just bumping them along until we can finally hear that. 4 new notices, a couple of continueds, 3 additional enforcements. you're pretty busy, but it's really going to be up to the board. Mr. Chairman, what would you like to do?
I would just offer that if the only outstanding issue to this project is,
Methodology.
if you will, the agreeability of pulling them in their entirety, then it should be kind of quick.
Attorney Brodigan, would the 8th or the 15th work for you? 6 1 half, both nights are equally as busy.
I would think what's today? Today's the 1st. I would say the 15th, if that would work. Oh, I'm sorry, the 8th would be fine.
Next week?
I'm getting a text message from my client telling me the 8th, so. 8th is
Okay,
fine.
and if you don't mind me asking, do you know offhand who the marine contractor you spoke with?
Yes, Coastal Marine. They're out of Canton. They do a lot of work in the islands and
Coastal Marine, okay.
They're in Canton. Actually,
Okay.
they just relocated to Stoughton.
Okay, they would have to get us their report or something in writing to the staff by early next week, like Monday. So we can evaluate it for the board. Monday or Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to December 8th.
Bird second.
Okay, so again, we're going to be looking at the feasibility of pulling them in their entirety. So that's what we want to focus on. That's really our only focus, because we all agree that the wall has to go.
So it's just the methodology. Are they going to do it by
Yeah.
hand? Are they going to bring the barge in?
Right.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear. All right. So we're going to take a vote on continuing this till 12/8. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Parasite.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this enforcement hearing until 12/8. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
All right. That is all we have, folks.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Pat and second.
Second.
See, nobody wants to leave. Every week it's like this. Everybody's like, oh, do we have to go? All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Parasite.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.